they don't do? What do they do that we don't do? So we put on this course, and it started out at first that it was a 4-hour workshop, and we would just do it. Well, then it became, at some of our agencies, can you come in and do 4 hours for this group, do 8 hours for this group, where we can actually dive into what potential use cases are good or bad for this idea of automated machine learning, which is really where we specialize in. And then it's gone into, let's actually just have you do a really abbreviated version for the director of this agency, because when you get threats from foreign countries that, artificial intelligence, it's going to be whoever wins this battle will now win the next world war. You can't let that fear go out inside of our community, right? So our program about data science for executives has now even skinnied itself down to an hour webinar where we're just trying to help people understand getting that executive sponsor who understands what it is that they're grappling with down through the practitioner level is really, really critical. It's probably, when we were at, we're at, how long have we been in, federal? Since less than a year. And when, at DOTUS, when you're asked to have the keynote spot because your CEO just gets it and deals with this across corporations, and we have over 250 million models are running in our commercial AWS cloud today. That shows that we have this ability to help these agencies and help corporations. And so he was asked to keynote DOTUS because he just wanted to say, listen, it's not this big mystical thing, and we can do something with agencies and corporations within a very, very short window. So I think education is really important, and having it bought in from the top down, and have your data scientists not hate the tools that are coming in, help them understand how they could leverage it to make them a little bit more efficient, maybe even take a data analyst who's very, very familiar with Tableau, help them understand how they use these tools to make better predictions with their data. And I think that education process, and then going into these pilots and these use cases, that should not take, by the way, they should not ever take, if the data's ready, they shouldn't take months and months to do it. I mean, we would prefer to come in and knock out a use case if it's in the right frame, right? If it's available for us, the data. We'd like to knock out use cases ideally within a day, a few hours even. We did something for one of the larger systems integrators in town. Again, a 4-month effort for them. It was hard because the data scientists sort of sat there after our proof of concept finished, and it was done within 20 minutes. And the executive said, how long did it take you guys? And they said 4 months. And we got this model, and this was the answer. They said, how long did it take when you leveraged DataRobot today? And they said 19 minutes. And so as a country, I'm not trying to compete with systems integrators. We're trying to enable these tools inside of our community so that you guys can leverage it, and we can just get to the work faster and get to the best results faster. So education, proof of concepts, not taking 9 months of requirements gathering, I think is really important.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the final thing that I want to riff on, and then we'll wrap up for 5 minutes of questions here. But how do you fit in that ecosystem? So we have folks in the room that could maybe build some solutions. We have the data scientists who are experts in their field, and it's been a running theme today. You're augmenting, but talk about how you fit into the larger government ecosystem. We'll start here, Martin.
Sure. Together with several of my colleagues, we have a pretty extensive network in DoD and the IC. So largely through our personal networks, we've made inroads that way. But at the same time, we're also doing currently a proof of concept with a systems integrator. They're evaluating our software, and if they like what they see, the goal there is that they would incorporate our software solution into their existing workflow. So they have contracts going on today that we believe our software would be a tremendous asset for, so they would roll us in that way. Where we don't have as many connections is with the civilian government agencies, and I know in organizations like Department of Transportation, HHS, the VA, there's tremendous opportunity there as well. So I'd love to get any insight from you on how we could best approach those types of agencies where we don't necessarily know the right people to talk to.
And what about the data scientist?
What about the data scientist? Where do I first slip it? Well, where Thresher fits, our other co-founder worked with the government for over a decade before she helped launch Thresher. And so we also work largely in the IC space, though, and in the national security space, though we do touch kind of other parts of government. And we're, over the past year, as we've discovered more and more people that are wrangling with these problems of, I have unstructured text, I'm throwing it out, I can't outsource my data, I need an expert to make these evaluations, I can't trust someone, who charges 2 cents per annotation to code my data. We've been moving into the commercial space as well. But in terms of where we fit in terms of the data science workflow, one of the things that Thresher does well is it helps subject matter experts speak and partner with data scientists who often don't speak the same language. And so our tool allows the subject matter expert to iterate very quickly with machine learning models, create training data, which they can articulate transparently, right? Like, our training data is coded as such because it fits this query. You can explain it to your superiors. You can have faith in the underlying fidelity of the data. And then pass those data to the data scientist who can do what they do best and implement their models. And then cycle back with the subject matter expert to analyze and validate the results. But we find that it really helps that communication process.
All right, and I'm getting the ear tug, though, from the back. So, Aaron, I hate we're going to cut you off, unfortunately, but any questions from the audience?
Yes, I very much appreciate the insight that you guys have provided. It's very, very nice to hear, especially as a practitioner. I'm very, very happy to hear that we're engaging at various levels. I've had a chance to engage senior legislative officials multiple times in this country and others around this idea of weaponization of data. And you're likely very familiar with my colleague Cathy O'Neill's book, where she details how many different types of weapons have been created using the very data that we as practitioners often seek to get access to. The concern that I have and the question that I'm raising is, what do you think? Well, we've already heard a suggestion from the chief data scientist for the U.S. government that all data scientists need to have strong ethical training and that they need to develop a strong moral compass. What are you doing in your individual firms to move that needle forward? And what should we as data scientists think about doing so that we don't become the very agents of people who are trying to weaponize data?
Sure, I'll go ahead and start. I think for us, the way we primarily approach this is by existing very, very firmly in augmented intelligence. We're not trying to automate anything fully, and this means that we privilege our subject matter experts, real expertise, understanding of nuanced cultural context, all of these things, and we're not trying to black box anything. So one of my favorite quotes was, I had an analyst say to me once, you know what you can't put in a PDB? Because the black box told me so, right? We need to keep our analysts in the loop, fundamentally understanding what's happening and being able to articulate why a certain set of data is selected, why a certain prediction is made, and make sure that we're not providing answers that are, say, point estimates, like this is the answer, so much as we're building predictive models that help focus our analysts' attention, but they're still doing that expert analysis and engaging with those ethical questions that they already engage with daily.
Yeah, I would echo a lot of that. Obviously, a good chunk of Kindi comes out of the national security arena, so we abide by the.
Maybe I wasn't clear.
Yeah.
I'm not asking a technical question
Yeah.
at all. The reason people are afraid of engaging data scientists in the adoption of artificial intelligence is because they're concerned that they cannot rely on the moral judgment of data scientists. That's the question I'm trying to get answered to. How do we improve that, and what are you doing in your individual firms to improve that?
So I'm speaking from a tools perspective. We are a software vendor, and so we do not have a services arm, if you will. We leverage the data scientists who are already inside the agencies. We leverage our partners, whether it's Booz and Deloitte and Accenture and CSRA. We want to work with those folks and ultimately, I understand where you're going with it, but we're giving them a tool to help them with the process of making the predictive models, but not to have them take that decision again and decide that's if Data Robot says that's the answer, therefore we should go launch something. So we do provide training about where our software works and how it works, but as far as the actual services providers and the people who are on site inside the agencies, that's not my company per se. We are just strictly on the helping you with your existing data set and helping you build out the models. We do Data Robot University. We train on, like I said, the executives all the way down through courses about how to use our tool. But I think it really depends a lot about the company or the agency you're working with and the team that they have in place.
Yeah, I also believe that this is not a new question, right? We grapple with this with every type of analysis, be it qualitative or quantitative. I think the new challenge that data science and AI poses is that it's a new vocabulary. And so we might have people not capable of speaking to each other about the actual ethical challenges that they're facing. And so this is where I think that training comes in. I think transparency in all of our models and our systems is really important so that people can understand the machinations and have those conversations. But I don't think it's a fundamentally new conversation.
That is a good point, by the way. Transparency, and I'm not a data scientist, as I think you figured out, but the transparency inside the models for us is huge. We actually provide a blueprint, and within the blueprint it opens up and it shows you every level of code that was developed. We'll even give you the original code so that you can have it within your organization. So full transparency, the reason codes, the ROC curves, everything that we did to help you come to that answer, that predictive model, is available, but you absolutely need your top data scientists and your executives to use that information carefully and thoughtfully. We're not trying to replace those people in any way, shape, or form.
All right, I think we have one more question.
All right, I get to be last. So we talked a little bit about accuracy and more importantly, inaccuracies. In your experience in working with the federal government, in different age, I mean, of course, it's going to depend on what level of inaccuracy they're willing to accept. With your colleague, the data scientist, what was her name? Amanda. If she got a team wrong in her bracket, she lost or came in second place in the March Madness. But if your system gets some incorrect data from social media and identifies someone as a potential threat or a terrorist, a day later they're found via satellite imagery and taken out by a drone nearby, and come to find out they were, I'm saying that happens, but
we don't do that.
I'm generalizing here, of course, for effect, but working with specific agencies, do they understand the level of inaccuracy? I mean, is 100% accuracy possible with with artificial intelligence? I mean, I don't think it is, but with certain implications, do they have a threshold with what they're willing to accept, or do you work with them to kind of develop that? It's a new concept, of course.
Right. So this is where that conversation is exceptionally important. 100% accuracy, it's not going to happen. And so there are a couple ways that we approach this. In statistical sense, we talk about type 1 versus type 2 error. But what that's really about saying is, are you more comfortable with being wrong in terms of positive identification? Or are you more comfortable with being wrong in terms of negative identification? And that depends on use case. That depends on the specific problem you're trying to solve. And we need to be able to have those conversations and really substantively think about what those trade-offs are and what we need. And this is where we definitely don't do the, oh, hey, person on social media drone, because in government, we don't have those margins for error, which is why we focus on focusing in the expert's attention. So instead of you having to read hundreds of millions of social media posts, what if we gave you and your expert analyst the top 20 to 100 users that we think might be problematic? And then you go through them by hand and you do the work that you already do. We're optimizing experts, right? We are not automating drones.
Right.
And part of optimizing experts is really being able to have those substantive conversations and doing that education where you can understand, at least theoretically, what the trade-offs are, even if you don't know what bias and variance are in statistics, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. So it's a springboard for analytics done by human beings. Now, that said, in other countries, they may have different ideas about what's appropriate. So you can imagine a country where it would be permissible to have a robot decide that's an enemy and take out the target. I don't think as Americans and most Westerners that we would be comfortable with that, but I personally think that, yeah, other countries might think otherwise, and that's, we should establish international norms just like we have with other technologies, and start that debate actually it's already starting now, but yeah, it could be a potential problem down the road.
Popular culture is ahead. That was Captain America Winter Soldier. What you're talking about, right?
I agree there, but I think that the conversation has to happen, and when you have the ability to fail fast and building your models, that's a really, really good thing. It's okay to fail, and it's okay to know that that model is not the best one, but at least we're getting there. We're automating some of these processes that normally are taking a data scientist takes weeks to months to develop a single model. If we can all collectively work together with the government customer and understand, listen, this is not a silver bullet, but do you have 7 months to wait and figure out where the next thing's going to happen in that part of the world? Probably not. But also, just because our software combined can give you a predictive model or give you a better picture within 20 minutes or 3 hours or 5 days even, you still need to really take that information very carefully and sit back and decide whether or not that's good information or not. Part of that that data science for executives things that we did for this this one agency, they wanted to take it into 8 hours, and they asked us to bring in our top data scientists to spend the afternoon going around and basically saying, bad idea. Don't use this for that use case. Good idea. Use our software and our tools for that kind of problem. So you want to work with experts. You want to really leverage your data scientists you have in-house, and then leverage, the companies that you work with who can bring in some expertise and help you decide whether or not that's a viable use case. There's something called overfitting, which I'm totally getting out of my swim lane here, but when you try to squeeze the answer out that you want, that's a really bad thing to have happen, and that's why we focus as a company on supervised machine learning. Guardrails are in place so that we don't let you just force the answer. I really want the answer to be that this is going to be X, Y, Z. We don't want that to happen, so that you still take that insight, and you and your executives and your decision makers get to decide whether or not it's something you want to act on or not. Okay, getting the cutoff.
We're going to get the hook, and we'll also have hangry people, and we don't want the monster storm. Well, thank you so much. Give a huge round of applause for the tech. And I think he's...
How do we engage?
Yep.
If there's something that interests us, then how do we go about engaging? And I think that's something that we should address.
We'd love to have.
Yeah, absolutely. So connect with him directly. Decode, DCODE.co. Reach out to us. We do nothing but scan tech for government. You can engage with us, and we know where to find these folks too. So either way is perfectly fine. But I definitely encourage conversation regardless, just to even see what's out there. Thanks, great question. All right.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned, and I want to thank you all for being here. I want to let you know that Justin had to run to another meeting, but I want to thank him for being the government co-chair, and all of our panelists, including this one. We very much appreciate your participation and insight. So thank you.
I went to Prague for a few days. I went to This was
Okay, great, thank you.
Say hello. Yeah, I'm sorry about what happened last week. Figure out another I'm feeling too well. I realized Devin still